The following lesson is linked to Learning Outcome 2, Reading and Viewing, and addresses the assessment standard that requires learners to explain the effect of visual, audio and audiovisual techniques such as the use of color, dialogue, music, sound, lighting, editing, framing, styles of shot, camera techniques, foregrounding and backgrounding. There are a number of elements that can bring a play to life. The set helps to set the scene. The costumes help us better understand the characters. The props make the action more realistic. The lighting draws our attention to certain aspects of the play, or it helps to create mood. And then there are sounds which help transport us to another world. In this lesson, we're going to find out how some of these elements help create a context and setting for the play and how they support the unfolding of the story and the development of the characters. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain how set and costume design relate to mood, theme, character and context. Explain the effect of lighting and sound on the mood and atmosphere in a play. Audiences go to a theatre to see a story performed. They know, and the actors know, that the story is not real, it's a play. But watching a play would be no fun for the audience if they kept thinking, oh, this is only make-believe. The actor is only pretending to cry, or that it's just a bench, not a bus. So a large part of the magic of theatre lies in the audience's ability to suspend their disbelief. Let me explain. When you watch a film or TV and you see footage of a shack, you don't have to pretend it is a shack because it is a real shack. But when you're watching a play, you will see something like this that represents a shack. The representation of a shack that we have just seen is not very realistic, but we are able to work out what it is because it represents Namhla and Dimi's home. The few objects that have been chosen, such as the mattress and the kitchen utensils, are enough for us to understand what is being portrayed so that we can follow the story, without the set detracting from the action. Have a look at the following clip taken from the play, The Suitcase, and see if you can work out what is being represented.
When I get home to Namhla, what will I tell her?
This clip represents Dimi being caught in the rain. Obviously it is not really raining on the stage, but the sound of sand on the metal of the rubbish bin and Dimi holding the lid over his head enables us to suspend our disbelief and imagine that Dimi has been caught in the rain.
I'm not going to believe that.
The person responsible for deciding how the set is going to be constructed is the set designer. In the case of The Suitcase, the set was designed by Nadia Cohen. We asked her to tell us what factors she needed to consider when creating the set for The Suitcase.
I think initially I had a discussion with James, who told me that the story was a very tender one. He hadn't yet finished writing the completed text, so he gave me the Eskia original story, which was obviously a much more sadder story. James embellished the whole thing and made it a love story. So his big heading about this as a story was that it was a tender love story. One can become very elaborate and become very extravagant in the way you interpret things. In this particular story, it's about poor theatre. It's about a poor set of circumstances. So one tends to underplay the visual, that there isn't any kind of extravagance because there's no extravagance in their life. So the set gives credibility to the story.
In addition to thinking about how to show tenderness and Dimi and Namhla's economic circumstances, Nadia also had to think about the spaces where the action takes place.
In reading the text, it became evident that there were two kind of environments for it. One was the very intimate environment of Timi and Namhla's home in the city once they'd made the journey from the rural area, and the other was the broader environment of of the city and various activities that took place around their lives.
Because Nadia identified two specific environments where the action of the play takes place, she created two distinct areas for the actors. The shack in the center of the stage is on a raised platform, so that it is higher than the stage floor, and then the space beyond or outside the raised shack became the second space, which was used to represent the city. By making these two areas distinct, the set design helps support the story. The fact that the shack is separate shows how Namhla and Timi have tried to create a little cocoon for themselves within the city. But it also shows that they have never completely become part of the city. In designing the set, the designer also needs to pay close attention to the details. In the suitcase, every prop or item which Namhla and Timi bring from the village was carefully chosen to help convey the time period, how few possessions they had, and how Namhla tried to create a homely environment with things like an embroidered tablecloth and some delicate cups. Here, Nadia talks about one detail she thought of and how this helps to tell the story.
One of the things that I'd seen was that people decorate their shelves with cut newspaper. And this became the sort of the theme for the intimacy of their shack, her bringing love and care to a very barren space.
Color choice is another area which requires careful attention. The palette or range of colors used needs to be representative of the time, mood, and atmosphere. Have a look at the colors that are used in these shots. In what ways does the choice of color support the themes of the play? From the shots, we can see that Nadia uses lots of grey, brown and black. The dull colors help to represent the dreary city life, where dreams quickly fade. In fact, we've even heard Namhla talk about the colors in the city.
Funny thing about that place is how grey it was. Everywhere you looked, there was just this rainbow of grey. People greet you with their grey smiles, grey conversations, kids playing and singing in old broken down cars, with their grey faces. Stuff around them that was once colourful eventually became grey.
So, by using grey in the set design, the set helps support what the character says about the fact that in the city, things soon become grey. Apart from touches of colour in Namhla and Timi's home, there is also more colour in the set when they are in the village than when they are in the city. This use of colour helps to contrast the two environments, one a place of family and the real earth, and one a place where hopes and dreams are quickly destroyed. Designing a set appears to be quite an involved process, and the designer really needs to pay a lot of attention to detail. Let's sum up the important things that we've learned about set design, which you can also look out for in other plays that you watch. A good set design will visually reflect the main themes of the play. It will support the story and, very importantly, the context that the play is set in. There will be some distinction between different environments. In other words, the stage or acting area will look different for scenes set in different places. A good set also pays careful attention to details and colors. Another element of design which tells us about the context in a play is the costumes. We spoke to actor Mncedisi Shabangu about the costumes that are worn in the suitcase.
But you saw the players that the costume is not so wow. It almost doesn't exist, but it exists, you know. So that's the kind of, wanted to look at ordinary people in the 50s. Because, you know, like every time you have to watch the 50s stories, it's all about gangsters and things like that, suits and nice heads and fancy cars and fancy everything. So we thought, no, let's just tap into ordinary people's lives. There were ordinary people in Sophiatown, in Doornfontein, in Mkumbane, you know, all those. So we wanted to actually talk about ordinary people. Yeah, and I think that the costume helped a lot.
So, in the suitcase, the costumes help us to imagine that the characters are ordinary, working class people from the 1950s who don't lead extravagant lives. The costumes also help tell us about the characters' personalities. What can you tell about Timi from his costume?
Throughout the whole play, Timmy wears a suit, you know, and it's the only suit he's got, you know, and then it's the only beautiful pair of shoes that he keeps on polishing all the time. So it says a lot about him, that he doesn't have anything beautiful than that. So he's holding on to them, you know, he takes care of them.
The fact that Dimi only has one set of clothes also distinguishes him from the landlord who is better off financially and able to afford different clothes, such as a waistcoat. Let's recap the important things about costume design. A good costume will not look like a costume. It will look like actual clothes on the character. A good costume will also support the personality of the character, and it distinguishes that character from all the other characters. Costumes must also support the context of the play by showing something appropriate for the time period and the economic situation of the characters. Besides set and costume, there are two more elements that affect the atmosphere and our understanding of the play: lighting and sound. Have a look at the following clip and see if you can work out why Wesley France, the lighting designer, chose to light the stage in this way.
It's a chance, a desperate chance.
Here, the lighting designer shows Dimi in a pool of light. Because the lighting is unusual, we realize that something important is happening. And because the light focuses on Dimi, our attention is focused on him and his emotions. The light is not particularly bright, but rather a dull yellow, and this gives the scene a serious and ominous mood. Here's another scene from the play. How is it different from the one that we have just discussed?
So I hope you didn't get lost again.
In this scene, the lighting is on the whole area of the shack, rather than focused on just one person. The light is bright, reflecting the positive atmosphere and the love between Dimi and Namhla. Also note here how lighting has been used to isolate the environment of the shack. The rest of the stage is not directly lit, making the location of the action very clear to the audience. Lastly, we're going to consider the sound used in the play. Now, while some theatre productions use pre-recorded music, director James Ngobo has chosen to use live music accompanied sometimes by actors singing. We spoke to actor John Lata, who plays the guitar in the play, about the music they used.
This is actually a true story, you know, and a lot of things have been created, but it becomes part of the play, not, you know, giving time or just transition on and stuff, but it's really about what people there did.
So, here again the director uses sound to develop the context of the play. He shows someone playing the guitar, because that is something you might have seen in Mkhumbane in the 1950s. In addition to music and singing, James has also made use of another type of sound. Instead of using a recording of the sound of a train in the city, the actors make this sound themselves. This helps to create a vibrant and exciting atmosphere which emphasizes the excitement and optimism that Namhla and Dimi are feeling as they arrive in the city. So, lights and sound are key elements in bringing a play to life. Let's recap the role that they play so that you can look out for them in other plays. Good lighting and sound design enhance the mood and atmosphere of the play, clarify the time and environment of the context, and also enhance the emotions of the characters. In today's lesson, we've discussed how set, costume, lighting and sound all contribute to the overall mood and atmosphere and how they enhance the themes and context of the play. To see if you can put this into practice, here's a task. Watch the next scene from the play and write about how the set, costume, lighting and sound help to tell this part of the story. In our next lesson in the series, we are going to delve into the plot of the play. See you then.